Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're heading to Portugal to uncover the secrets of Porto.
Porto, Portugal. Sounds fantastic.
It is. And to guide us, we have this incredible book packed with history, winemaking insights, and even some travel tips.
Oh, a travel guide, too. I'm already picturing myself strolling those charming
Me
streets.
too. It's easy to get swept away by the romantic image of Porto with the Douro River and a glass of, well, port in hand. But
But there's more to Porto than just that postcard image, right?
exactly. While port wine is a huge part of Porto's identity, this book dives into the city's multifaceted charm, its history, culture, everything.
Now that you mention it, I have always been curious about what makes Porto so special, beyond its namesake wine.
Well, get ready to have your mind blown. The city itself is steeped in history, with its colorful houses clinging to those hillsides, the iconic Douro River, and a vibrant energy that just draws you in.
You know, I always pictured the Douro River as just a picturesque backdrop. I mean, it definitely adds to the visual charm,
But
but
you're thinking there's more to it than meets the eye.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Reading this book, I realized just how crucial the Douro is to port wine production. It's not just a pretty river, it shapes the essence of the wine.
You're talking about the terroir, right?
Yes, the terroir, the unique environmental factors like the soil, the steep slopes along the Douro, the sunshine, all of it. These elements come together and give port its distinct character. It's fascinating how geography plays such a crucial role in a wine's taste, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes sense, but to think that those specific slopes, that particular soil, are what contribute to those flavors, it's incredible. And the Douro Valley isn't just important for wine, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And reading about how people have literally carved terraces into those steep slopes by hand over centuries. Talk about dedication.
Wow, that's impressive. Centuries of human effort shaping the landscape to cultivate grapes. It's like a living testament to their dedication to this craft.
And that dedication is woven into the very fabric of port wine itself.
And the history of port wine is a wild ride. I was surprised to learn about the role of a 17th century treaty.
A treaty, that's not what usually comes to mind when I think of wine. Tell me more.
Well, it all comes down to the Methuen Treaty of 1703 between England and Portugal.
Okay, so what does a trade agreement have to do with port wine?
It essentially gave preferential treatment to Portuguese wines, making them more affordable in England. And guess what?
It made port a hit with the Brits.
Exactly. This triggered a huge surge in port's popularity and set the stage for it to become the world-renowned wine it is today. It's amazing how a political agreement could have such a profound impact on, well, a drink.
Isn't it? But the historical significance doesn't end there. In 1756, the Douro region achieved a major milestone.
Let me guess. They invented the corkscrew.
Not quite, but close in terms of importance. They became the world's first demarcated wine region.
Demarcated, what does that mean?
Basically, they established strict boundaries and regulations for the quality and origin of their wines way before anyone else. It shows how seriously they took their winemaking, recognizing they had something special worth protecting.
That's pretty forward-thinking for the 1700s. It speaks volumes about their dedication. It's like they knew they were onto something truly special.
And they were. Now, I know our listeners are eager to learn more about the wines themselves, especially the grapes that go into making port.
Well, get ready for some grapelicious knowledge, because there are over 80 grape varieties allowed in port production. It's like a winemaker's playground.
80. That's a lot to keep track of. Are there any star players we should know about?
Absolutely. There are a few key grapes that really shape the character of port. First, there's Touriga Nacional, often called the queen grape. It adds body and complexity, that backbone of structure.
So Touriga Nacional is the bold one.
Exactly. Then we have Touriga Franca, known for its elegance, floral aromas, a bit of freshness. And then there's Tinta Rores. You might recognize this one as Tempranillo in Spain. It brings color and adds structure to the blend.
Tempranillo. I've heard of that one. But I know port isn't just red wine, right?
You're right. While red port is more common, there's also white port. They use grapes like Malvasia fina, known for its delicate floral notes and a touch of sweetness.
So many choices. We've covered history, the unique terroir of the Douro, and a glimpse into the grapes themselves. But now I want to know more about Porto, the city, especially its food scene.
Oh, the food. This book made my mouth water just reading about it.
I know, right? Especially the francesinha. It's like a sandwich on steroids.
It really is. This legendary sandwich is packed with cured ham, sausage, steak, cheese.
Don't forget the sauce.
Oh, right. the secret spicy tomato and beer sauce. Every restaurant has its own recipe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's a real point of pride. It's a dish that truly embodies Porto's cuisine hearty, full of flavor, and
Mhm.
steeped in tradition.
It sounds incredible. And I'm guessing that's just the beginning of Porto's culinary adventures. What else should we look out for?
Well, you can't visit Porto without trying bacalhau a gomes de sa. It's a classic codfish dish with potatoes and onions. Portugal has a deep connection to the sea, and this dish reflects that. And if you're feeling adventurous, there's tripas à moda do Porto.
Tritas. What is that?
It's a tripe stew. A bit adventurous, yes, but it goes way back to the 14th century.
Wow, so each dish tells a story about the people, the history.
Absolutely. It's incredible how food can connect us to a place and its past.
We've already learned so much about Porto, its history, the Douro River's influence, and its tantalizing cuisine. But now it's time to dive to the heart of it all, the different styles of port wine.
I'm ready. From the vibrant ruby ports to the complex tawny ports, there's a whole spectrum of flavors waiting to be explored. We'll uncover your perfect port, don't you worry. Are you ready to decode the wonderful world of port wines? We'll uncover those hidden gems and find the perfect bottle for you.
I'm all in. It's like we're unlocking a secret society of flavors, especially those legendary vintage ports. They sounded almost mythical in the book.
Vintage ports definitely have an aura about them, but let's start with the basics first.
Sounds good. Break it down for me.
Okay, so broadly speaking, port wines fall into two categories, sweet and dry. And within each category, you'll find an incredible range of flavors, aromas. It all depends on the grapes, the aging, the winemaker's touch.
So it's like exploring different regions within a vast, fascinating country.
Exactly. Now, which region shall we explore first? Sweet or dry?
Let's start with sweet. I have a bit of a sweet tooth.
Excellent choice. When most people think of port, they picture those rich, decadent red wines with a touch of sweetness.
Yeah, makes sense. It's the classic image, right?
Right. And there's a whole family of sweet ports out there, each with its own personality. Shall we meet the family?
Let's do it. I'm
Right.
ready to dive into this delicious world.
Okay, first up is Ruby Port. This is the young, vibrant one, full of energy. You'll recognize it by its deep red color. And the aromas. Think fresh red berries, raspberries, cherries, plums.
Sounds delicious. So Ruby Port is the approachable, fruity one.
You got it. Now, if you're looking for something deeper, more complex, then we move on to Tawny Port.
Tawny Port. The name itself sounds sophisticated.
It is. Tawny ports spend more time aging in oak barrels exposed to oxygen. And that's what gives them that beautiful amber color and those amazing flavors.
What kind of flavors are we talking about?
Think dried fruits like figs, apricots, toasted nuts, caramel, even a hint of spice. They're smooth, elegant, velvety.
Ooh, I can already imagine myself curled up by the fire with a glass of Tawny Port.
Perfect image. But we can't forget the star of the show, the one everyone whispers about.
You mean vintage port?
Yes, vintage port. It's the rarest, the most sought after. Only made in truly exceptional years when everything aligns perfectly. They age for a long time, sometimes decades, developing incredible complexity.
So these are the wines that age gracefully, like a fine antique.
Exactly. Think of a young vintage port as a diamond in the rough, full of potential. As it ages, it transforms, those tannins soften, and the flavors become extraordinary. You get layers of dark fruit, spice, sometimes hints of chocolate, tobacco, even earthy notes.
Wow, it's like a symphony of flavors unfolding over time. Now, the book also mentions some special categories, like colheidas and garrafaras. What makes them unique?
Yes, the special editions. The Colheita is a single-year tawny port. It's aged for at least 7 years in oak, showcasing the character of that specific vintage. Imagine tasting a snapshot of a particular year.
So it's like a time capsule in a bottle. And what about garrafera? That one sounds mysterious.
It is quite unique. Imagine this. A port that spends a few years in oak, then an extended period, sometimes decades, in these large glass demijohns. This gives it a mix of oxidative notes from the barrel and a surprising freshness from the bottle. The result, complex, savory, nutty.
Wow, they really thought of everything. The sweet side of port is truly impressive. But let's not forget those who prefer dry wines. What treasures await us on the dry side of the port spectrum?
You're in for a treat. Dry ports are gaining popularity, especially for those who like lighter, more refreshing styles. They're a whole different side of port, ready to be explored.
I'm all ears. Tell me everything. What are some of the key players in the dry port world?
Well, one of the stars is white port. It can be bone dry or slightly sweet, but the dry style is especially delicious. It's crisp, zesty aromas of citrus, almond, often a salty hint.
Ooh, salty. That's interesting. What would you pair that with?
It's amazing as an aperitif. Or try it with seafood, salads, light dishes.
Sound like the perfect summer drink.
It is. And then we have rosé port, a newer style that's becoming quite trendy. Think bright red berry aromas, touch of sweetness, refreshing.
Rosé port. I can already picture that at a picnic on a sunny day.
Yeah. Exactly. It's great on its own or with lighter foods. And lastly, we have tawny dry port, the sophisticated sibling of white port. It ages in oak, so you get those nutty oxidative notes, but without the sweetness of a regular tawny.
So it's like an aged white wine with a whole extra layer of complexity. I need to try this.
You won't regret it. It's perfect for those who love white wines with depth.
Wow, we've really journeyed through the world of port. From those vibrant ruby ports to those elegant tawnies, the refreshing dry styles. There's something for everyone.
Absolutely. But our exploration wouldn't be complete without mentioning the people behind the magic, the producers who bring these wines to life.
That's a great point. The book mentioned historic houses and quintas. I'm curious to learn more about them and what sets them apart.
Each producer has their own story, their own philosophy, their own way of crafting these incredible wines. It's like stepping into a world where tradition and innovation come together.
Okay, let's talk port producers. I'm eager to dive into the people behind these incredible wines.
You know, it's fascinating stepping into the world of port producers. Imagine these families crafting wine for generations, their knowledge passed down over centuries, a true connection to the Douro Valley.
It's like stepping back in time. So where do we even begin with all these historic houses and quintas?
Well, let's start with those historic port houses. They're like the grand estates that shaped the world of port as we know it.
Okay, so who are we talking about?
Think Taylor's, Graham's, Sandeman, Ferrera, names that have been around for centuries. Some even go back to the 1600s.
Wow, that's a lot of history.
Right. And they're known for these massive cellars where they age those ports for decades, creating all those complex flavors that make port so special.
I'm ready to hear about these legends. Let's start with Taylor's.
Taylor's is one of the oldest, most respected houses out there, known for their exceptional vintage ports. Really meticulous about their grapes, traditional winemaking. The result, ports that are both powerful and elegant. And they also make a fantastic chip dry white port. Crisp, refreshing, perfect before a meal.
Ah, so if I want that classic vintage port experience with some aging potential, Taylor's is the way to go.
Definitely. They're a benchmark for quality. And then we have Graham's, known for their elegant, balanced ports. Their 6 Grapes Reserve is a great introduction to their style, a blend of wines from different quintas. And for a real treat, their 20-year-old tawny is phenomenal. Dried fruits, nuts, caramel, spice, everything in harmony.
Okay, Taylor's for classic, Graham's for elegance. I'm writing this down. Now, what about Sandeman? I feel like that name rings a bell, something to do with a mysterious figure in a cape.
You're right. Sandeman is famous for their Dawn logo, that mysterious figure in the black cape and hat. It's become a symbol of their brand, you know. And they have a wide range of ports, from their approachable Founders Reserves to their richer 10-year-old tawny. Something for everyone.
Right, and we can't forget Ferrera, the house founded by Donna Antonia. Her story in the book was amazing.
Oh, Donna Antonia was a remarkable woman. A true trailblazer in the Douro. A woman ahead of her time she was. Known for her business skills and dedication to quality. And Ferrera carries on her legacy today, making those incredible vintage ports and the Donna Antonia Reserva Tawny.
Inspiring. Okay, so we've covered the historic houses, but what about those quintas? What makes them different?
Quintas are the heart and soul of the Douro, those individual wine estates. Family-owned, many of them for generations. They're the source, you know, where the grapes grow, where the magic starts.
I'm getting the sense that terroir is really everything in port, isn't it?
Absolutely. Each quinta has its own microclimate, soil, grape varieties, all contributing to their unique character. And some quintas, like Quinta do Noval, Quinta de Crasto, and Quinta da Pacheca, they bottle their own ports.
So it's like a more intimate, focused expression of the land.
Exactly. Now, take Quinta do Noval. They're home to the legendary National Vintage Port, one of the rarest, most sought after in the world. It comes from this tiny vineyard that survived the phylloxera epidemic in the late 1800s.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like a piece of history that managed to persevere.
It is. And then you have quintas, like Quinta de Crasto. They offer a whole enotourism experience. Imagine visiting their vineyards overlooking the Douro. You can tour their winery, do tastings, and they even have a fantastic restaurant with breathtaking views of the valley.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Sipping port, surrounded by those vineyards, I can picture it now.
Truly a must-do for any port enthusiast.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a more intimate Quinta experience, there's Quinta da Pacheca. They make both port and Douro DOC wines. And you can stay on the estate in these unique wine barrel suites nestled among the vines.
Wait, did you say wine barrel suites? Sign me up.
Yeah, pretty unique. You wake up surrounded by vineyards, the scent of grapes in the air. Talk about immersion.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. We've explored the history, the Douro Valley, the different port styles, the producers. It's incredible how much depth there is to this world.
Right. And it just goes to show there's always more to discover. A new flavor to savor, a new story to uncover.
I'm already planning my next port adventure. I want to try those white ports, track down a bottle of that national vintage port.
Excellent. And remember, the beauty of port is more than just taste. It's the stories, the traditions, the connection to a place and its people.
It really is. This deep dive has given me a thirst for knowledge and maybe a craving for a glass of port or two.
I think we both deserve a glass after this. Cheers.
Cheers. And to all our listeners, happy sipping. Until next time.